Today it's a great pleasure to have Gabriela Fuchs Frei as a guest. Gabriela, you have an impressive career, mostly in financial services and also in sales. You worked for leading companies in the financial industry, and you accepted to share some of your tips with us today as far as sales are concerned. Do you have any tips for newcomers to sales? What should they do and what should they not do?
Yes, sure. Newcomers to sales are mostly welcome all the time. From my perspective, if you ask about what they should do, I think that's the more important part. It's very important that you're just eager to sell, to compete, to try to understand the client needs and see that the service that you want to offer creates value to the customer. At the end of the day, that's the whole story about selling, and then you will be successful. What you shouldn't do is be a pain in the neck of a client, but be enough persistent to not let you turn down and to pick up the phone again and ask the client maybe 2 months later again whether he's now ready, whether he has a project. I think that's very, very important to be persistent, to keep going and not get demotivated because there are a lot of sales opportunities out there. You have to create them also.
But that's a thin line because you can easily be too present and not enough. So how do you strike a balance there?
For me, being too present is when your client starts not to pick up your phone call anymore. But then on the other side, when you don't call, nobody is calling you back because then your phone is not ringing either.
Yes, I've been there.
So there is this balance between both, and you have to get the feeling for your client. Your client will tell you if he feels that you are a pain in his neck, but he will also tell you once you have established a relationship which is based on trust. And I think that's an important part. You have to start creating trust with your intermediary so he sees the added value to spend time with you and it's to share and to discuss what his pain points are. Because you cannot say, oh, I have this product and 100 features, but maybe only feature number 99 is important to that client, and you need to find that out.
Finding out these needs, what is the most common mistake that salespeople would do when they start like this in the career?
Oh, just to run down the feature list of the service. The client doesn't need that. Maybe he has a totally different problem, and you will never get the answer of what is his true problem and whether you have a solution to that problem.
So basically, you go really into a dialogue with the client to understand their needs.
Yes, it's a dialogue, it's an interaction. Obviously, in the times we are currently in the virtual, it's more difficult to start with somebody an interaction. But then on the other side, I also tell my teams often I have hardly ever been that close to the face of somebody when I'm selling than in a big meeting room. So you also can create closeness and trust. It's another way of doing it.
It's very interesting. In a time where it's more digital, you actually are closer to the person.
In some respects, because you see a lot of motions, the eyes, and what really is the thinking process is an important part in the sales process. If you can read a face, that's why I think it's not so bad in the virtual. Sometimes you are in big meeting rooms and the key stakeholder happens to be sitting to your right and you never see his face.
Whereas in the video conference, you will have the focus on the person speaking, actually. You bring this topic of a new way of doing these sales meetings that's happened mostly due to what we all experiencing, the pandemic, COVID 2020. Do you have any advice? What has changed in sales meetings?
Do you mean a sales meeting in the sense of a pipeline call with your team when you try to find out what they're doing, or a sales meeting when you are actually trying to sell something to your client?
The second one, when you're in the actual sales meeting.
When we are in a virtual sales environment, what I sometimes find also difficult is then to get awareness and the traction of everybody in the call, because it's so easy to quickly shut down or go on mute, take away your video. When you start losing important stakeholders while you do presentations, it's important that you know who is on the call and that you can start interacting with questions, even address some people. So you make sure that they're always back in the community. Also using the tools properly, really have a presentation screen and not only a PowerPoint where you have all the PowerPoints that are coming to the left and a little slide here.
So here's the thing, Gabriela. So I worked in sales quite a lot, but most of my experience is in the recruitment industry, meaning that for many, many years, I taught people, how do you find clients, managers who are recruiting, and then we sell the candidates, right? And so now we're doing a sales academy where we first teach a bit the general principle of sales, and then we go into details. How do you sell Engage? How do you sell insurance? It was quite easy for me to teach people how to find clients when they're recruiters, because we had a funnel. First, you contact the people where you already placed candidates. Then you contact other managers in the company. Then you contact managers who had need in the past. Then you maybe go to job boards, see which companies are recruiting Java developers, if that's your specialty. And you contact them on LinkedIn. So we had a funnel. We'd be like, these are the most likely to respond, yes. Now, the question we have in the Sales Academy where we're struggling a bit is there a model that would generally work? For me, it was very industry specific. I could teach someone how to find clients in the insurance industry, but are there some tips and tricks that any salesperson should know, whether they're selling soap or insurances or tables or services? What would be some things that are generally true? Do you have any advice on that?
First of all, you need to understand the service or the product that you want to offer. That's very important. And then you have to identify, is there a market? Is there a gap somewhere that I can sell into? And on what basis am I competing? Am I competing on price, on quality? And if it's quality, there might be a premium price, and then your target market are also clients that are willing to pay a premium price. So you identify the segment that you can target from there. And that's the same for every industry. That's not industry specific. And then, yes, you need to get awareness. You have to create an alert in the market that you're there. Today in the digital world, it's easy to go on LinkedIn and make a speech. Or Philippe is there and talks about the engagement, what you want to do, and your community is liking it. And maybe somebody, oh, it's interesting, I call the guy up. So you have to create leads also like that. Even the digital world is much more easy to identify your target client than it used to be, because when I was starting in the sales environment and I had to only go for new clients, I didn't get accounts. There was this little blue book where every new company registered and I had to read it. And oh, that's a financial service company. I have to call them up. I need to do cold calling and find out whether the client has a need or whether he has already the competitor. I think that hasn't changed.
Yeah, that's what we actually did now in the Sales Academy. We said, before you even start selling, know yourself, know your product. So we give them a list of questions going, how many products do you have that you're selling? What are the features? Then who is it for? Who is it not for? What are the advantages? Maybe there are any disadvantages too that we need to be aware of. And then you can go, okay, so based on that, who would be our target audiences? Then we went like, if your company is already selling, maybe there's some accounts where you can further.
Yeah, but I think that's anyhow important.
Yeah.
Selling into your current account is a lot easier than create a new account. And retention in that respect, keeping your clients that are creating revenue, is a very, very important aspect of selling or even of a growth strategy.
Yeah.
Because you need to be sure that you really keep your bottom line. Otherwise, you cannot create new value, invest. Something that I was missing when I heard your list is you need to understand your competition.
Yeah, that's what we also said. Go to your competition and see who they are working for, what do they offer, and even go on their website and see which companies are they actually working for, because that gives you an idea which clients could be interesting for you.
Yeah, it's important that you understand the competition, that you're working or fighting for the same client. You need to understand what they're offering there. Maybe you have a unique selling proposition that you're not even aware of. You can find it out with your client, talking to them. Suddenly you have like, oh, wow, yeah, that's true. I didn't even realize that being compliant and approved by FINMA, that's in the financial market, is an asset and a value.
I guess then the question would be like, Philippe, maybe why should you know your competition and how does it help you establish yourself in the market and find clients?
You should know what you're competing against when you do a pitch, because the client is going to tell you, oh, that company is much cheaper, go lower there. It helps you understand where you are, where your values are in selling, and where you can say no to going even lower, because selling over the price only makes you a commodity. So that's why you should understand your competition. This said, for me, it's really a given. You shouldn't focus on your competition. You should focus on what you want to sell, what are the values of your company, and what you bring in it. The competition will always be there, but you have to win the deal.
And I like very much your advice here, Gabriela. I like this. Of course, you're aware of competition, but you should really focus on what you are bringing to the clients, which value you're bringing to them.
Yeah, I also like the thing about keep the current clients. We had in our company, we had a chart where we would measure, okay, so almost 50% of all the business was repeat business with the same manager or selling the same product. And then about 30-40% was, okay, selling new products to the same managers or other managers within the company, right? So that was like going deeper into the business, right? And so those were the two categories, repeat business. And then how did we call that, Philippe?
Cross-selling and upselling.
Cross-selling. Our company called it penetration business and made everyone laugh. So I'm trying on purpose not to use that word.
Okay.
That's why you wanted me to say the word. No way.
Oh,
We found a word. We found a word that sounded good.
That was below the belt, the penetration thing.
So anyway, so you have your current business. You have like, we found a good word for it, but like getting more business from the same client, just growing the business within the company. And then we have like that only 20-30% would be new business, or depends, right? It depends where you're at. But what we also realized is that repeat business often takes a tenth of the effort than finding a new client. So we would have this pie chart and we would just show that to our new salespeople and go, the key thing is that you keep your current clients happy and that you do repeat business. Then you go further into the companies and sell more and expand. I think we had expanding current business. And of course, you always need to have new leads. You can't do that, but just be aware that finding new companies can be up to 10 times more work than just selling to who you already got. So it has to be a good balance between the three of them.
To follow up on that, Chrissy, Gabrielle, in financial services, is that about the same ratio approximately? Do you know by chance how big is the recurring business compared to new business acquisition? Is there a big difference?
I think in well-established companies, new business is about 20% and 80% is recurring, because you have subscription business. And that's the art, we really need to keep that, because if we lose 10% of this, that's a lot of money. And then we have to bring in 30 or 40% new business. And that's very, very difficult if you want to grow. If you lose 10 million, you have to bring in 20 just to grow.
Yeah, I guess that's industry specific, how much you can have recurrent business and how much new you need. But the more recurrent you can have, the better.
Yeah, it depends on your business model. You need to not only sell one-off projects, you need to have some recurring maintenance or whatever subscription user-based business. Otherwise, you will not grow or survive.
So when it comes to finding new clients, what we said so far to new starters is first look who your company is already doing business with and see if you can find expansion into that business. That might not be possible for everyone. Then talk to good salespeople in your company or in your industry. Find out who are they doing business with after you understood your product and all that. Look at your competitors on the websites. Who are they doing business with? Just to get started, because often people don't know, where do I even start? And all that already gives you some ideas of the types of companies. And you can look, what do these companies have in common? Could they be interesting for me or not? And then, of course, LinkedIn is a good resource where you can already put your job title out there, where you can research specific managers or individuals who could be interested in your service. But it's always going from what you already know and then going downwards. Does that resonate?
Yeah, sure.
Now we have one question. How do you stay motivated to sell after you got turned down by one client, two clients, or three clients in a row? How do you keep motivated as a salesperson?
Personally, I think you need to have an intrinsic self-motivation that you want to be successful, that you want to be competing. When you get turned down, you need to reflect and understand what the reasons. Why were you turned down? Maybe it's about your sales approach. Maybe it's about your product. It's always worthwhile reflecting that, noting down and seeing a pattern. If you are motivated, and sales is an interaction with client, getting figures, contracts done, you're so self-motivated that you normally need a little walk around the house and then you're ready to make your next call. I don't see a problem with a motivated salesperson.
And you know what is amazing with you is when I mention sales and business, you have a big smile. It seems like you love it.
I love it.
What do you love in it?
For me, selling and adding value to the clients. Some people often ask me, why don't you stop here? Haven't you done enough running after quarter of quarter to hit the figures, to have even a bigger team? No, that's exactly what I like. I want to get these figures in.
I love your enthusiasm, Gabriela. It's fantastic. So you love selling. Do you have any role model in sales? Is that anybody who has inspired you or from whom you've learned a lot?
Maybe it's a little bit strange to say that, but somebody who was not really famous in selling, but creating a company and not being demotivated when he was turned down was Steve Jobs. He really understood trends. He understood how are we all going to make value of such a stupid tool that we're all addicted now. Just an example to show you why I admire Steve Jobs to come back, because I think he was a great salesperson. He understood how humans want to live and make our life easier. For example, I just love the singing of the birds in the morning, but I never understood what birds are singing out there. Now I have an app and I know what bird is singing. Isn't that great? That's why I love Steve Jobs.
Very precise. Some people say you need to be born a salesperson. It's all about talent. Some others say, no, it's about a process. And some other people told me that it's just about luck. So what's the truth in that?
The mixture. Personally, I believe a good salesperson needs to be service-oriented. You need to want to serve a client, to come up with a solution and to create a good feeling for that client. That's something you need to have as a human being. Not everybody who understands the process, the methodology, all that is a good salesperson. Because for me, intuition and the sense of what the client really wants and whether what he is telling me is what he really thinks, that's something you need to have in yourself. That's not about the methodology and not about the process and not about luck. It's about listening skills, but luck is also part of a good salesperson because you need to be at the right time with the right client. You might want to have the right account where the buying cycle of the account is there that you can sell into. So that's part of the luck. You have to be successful because you can get the territory which is dried out because everybody has invested 1 or 2 years ago. You have these sales cycles that also contribute to your successes. So yes, for me, it's a mixture.
So what would you say to someone who starts in sales but is not really convinced that it's a career for him? Would you have any advice for that person?
Yes. Stop doing that job and go immediately out. You have to be 100% convinced that selling is what you like to do, because selling also has a lot of frustrating moments. You have a lot of complexity. I mean, if you have a complex sale and you have tough negotiations and you go into a meeting to negotiate and the purchasing department is there, and the first 5 minutes they tell you how bad your product is, how bad your quality is, and you are too expensive, you need to be able to bear that and to do that. And that's a very, very important task. And if you can't, then it's impossible to sell. But honestly, you cannot believe what they do to you in the professional purchasing environment.
In many cases, I was not too much dealing with them, but they came really at the last minute, just checking. We already had the managers who said, I want these guys, and the purchasing department had to do what they were told to do.
I remember once when I was in the closing phase with one of my team members to close a big contract. And we had officially a preparation meeting with only 2 people from the purchasing department to set the scene. And then we came there and we wanted to discuss a few things to prepare the final negotiation round. And then we were brought in to the smallest meeting room I knew from that client. And it was totally overheated. And there were already 6 other people there, plus us 2. And we were squeezed into that meeting room. And they started to negotiate and finalize the contract. We didn't get any water, we didn't get any coffee, nothing. That's how they try to put you under pressure at the end. And it's very important where you lose the most is in the last 10 minutes of a negotiation. That's when you have to be very alert, because you give away a lot. Because you say, oh, can you do that? Can you do that? And then you start to calculate it and you're going like.
So be very alert in the last 10 minutes of a negotiation. That's a very interesting point.
Or half an hour.
The last part, yeah. It's a bit like the Colombo part, you know. Oh, my wife, my wife.
Exactly.
All right. So we wanted to talk about digitization in sales. Things have changed a lot in the past 12 to 18 months. It seems that digitization has caught up with us. How has this affected sales, actually?
Sales has been affected heavily. Obviously, from day one of the close down or lockdowns, depending on the countries, we were all forced to contact our clients through the mediums or the tools that were available and continue the sales process and continue to build pipelines, continue to position new products, but do this through other means. And it has changed a lot also in the way of maybe our clients were motivated, but also my sales team was motivated. In these first 2 months, they all thought it's going to go away. We have soon meetings again with our clients. We will be able to shake hands, drink a beer after the meeting, but that's all gone. So we have to start creating closeness differently. And what was also very, very important is presenting like that, creating presentations and create the value over a screen, over Teams, over Zoom is totally different than when we were used to present and to present products. So here we had to train the team. We really started training in initiatives for virtual selling. So that was very, very important part of the success. But what we also changed, obviously, is the offering process. We changed the contracting process. We went to digital signatures for clients that are not ready to sign with these digital tools. I mean, it's DocuSign or whatever. We have created a legally conform signature process through PDF. So you have to start being creative to get your deals in, because the companies are not telling you we take your targets down. They keep your targets up there. So that has changed a lot. And on the other side, what was interesting is also in the digital world, we were suddenly ready to create communities over time zones, which were not possible at the beginning. We talk about an international sales team. I used to have a sales team meeting with the Swiss team. I used to have one with the Asian team. And now we can create a time slot and have the same presentations of product management, of partners to a wider audience. These are advantages, and that's here to stay.
Could you say that actually this forced digitization at an incredible pace is bringing some opportunities?
Yes, it brings value, by the way. Once you have the okay of a client on that side to sign a contract, we had turnaround sometimes of 4 hours.
All right.
So thank you very much.